Let's welcome to the show the Director of Victor Consulting and a former Senior Policy and Communications Strategist for Dame Jacinda Ardern, then just Auntie Jacinda. Clint Smith joins us live. Clint, good evening to you, sir.
G'day, lads. I have to say, my beard feels a bit undercooked compared to yours.
Yeah, well, speaking of being cooked, you know, we're all cooked these days because of Atlas Network and those conspiracy theories. It is kind of hilarious how that's all turned to full 180, isn't it? That all those people who were cooked are now saying, look how cooked you are because you're doing all those facts about things that David Seymour graduated from. Eh? Anyway. Yeah. Hey, Chewie is an angry ginger ball tonight, Clint. I'm just giving you a warning because he is ready to go off. All right. About something that we missed out on last week. So, Chewie, I imagine you've been bubbling all weekend getting ready for the show. What would you have done, Chewie, if I had said, nah, let's not talk about that? That was last week's news. What would you have done? You would have just exploded?
I'd just pop.
Okay.
I'd just pop like a balloon in a ceiling fan. It'd be over.
And Clint, you put out a particularly interesting tweet on, I think it was on Friday, which caused me to contact you, which also says this. This is from your Twitter. If you're in the audio podcast, I'm reading Clint's tweet. It's time to talk about how Luxon bought a 3-bedroom family home mortgage-free in the middle of a housing crisis, converted it into his electorate office, charges taxpayers $45,000 a year for rent, highest of any electorate office, rather than just renting a nearby existing office. It feels like the housing conversation and our hairless leader is due for a thorough talking over. So before we get to the $1,000 a week, and oh boy, do we have comments, including, we'll play something from his stand-up today, where he just flat out lied, where he says this is available to all MPs. Let me make this really clear. What he takes is not available to all MPs. And if you're not aware of that, I'll show you why. But first, Clint, our guest, our fellow beardie, what do you want to tell us about buying this 3-bedroom house, renting it back, and that part of this whole Christopher Luxon housing debacle?
So this is one that sort of got my goat for a little while, actually. It was first reported, I think, maybe a year or so ago that Luxon was charging the most for an electorate office of any MP. And, okay, that's one thing. But then I saw the picture of it, and hang on, that's a house. When did he get a house, and why is it suddenly an electorate office? So I looked it up, and there's a old real estate ad online. It was sold to him in March 2020, just before he became an MP, and it was a family home at that time. There's some interior photos as well, and he's gone. I'm going to be an MP. I'm going to buy a home. I'm going to turn that 3-bedroom home into an office building. When there's what you can't see in that photo is directly across the road. There's some shops where he could have rented an office,
right?
And it just, and now he's got this asset, which he's charging the taxpayer $45,000 a year for. And look, MPs need electorate offices. That's fair. They shouldn't have to pay out of pocket for those. That's fair. But there's a real, it's part of a pattern with Mr. Luxon that every opportunity there is for him to take a bit of taxpayer money and put it in his pocket, he seems to take it. And it just gets me the wrong way. And I have to say that it was my most liked tweet ever. And so I think, it gets a lot of people the wrong way.
I'm not going to say this word correctly because I don't know how to pronounce it, but pecuniary interest. The MPs and stuff have to have a list of pecuniary interests, like money or gift or whatever they get. If they own the property and they're renting it, why isn't that a part of that? Why isn't there some sort of regulations or rules or whatever? I mean, there probably are rules. The rules are, yeah, you can do that, but why isn't there something more? When we worry so much about someone being, like an MP being flown somewhere by a company, we worry about that, right? Because there could be a conflict of interest. What about something like this? Why isn't this a conflict of interest to a government who is now making rules about landlords getting more money back when you're a landlord of at least 5 properties?
I think that's a very good question. There used to be a rule, I think it's still in place, that MPs can't employ their own immediate family members as electorate staff or staff in their offices at Parliament, and that's because there's a conflict there. And I think that the same logic applies. If you're the landlord of the property that has been rented by the taxpayer for your use, that seems a bit open to manipulation. And in this case, we've seen he's made a situation where he is able to say, yeah, I've got this really expensive electorate office, which, it was a family home and I converted it to an electorate office. That's why it's so expensive.
Yeah.
So please give me lots of money for it. And yeah, I think people would rightly say, why is that the case?
Chewie?
I am furious.
Explodes.
Yes, so someone called me Mount Vesuvius in
very good.
The comments.
There's a t-shirt.
I think, Clint, you're exactly right. If there is money on the table, he is stuffing it in his fucking pockets. Damn the torpedoes. I don't give a shit. It's within the rules. It's mine. And we have 4 examples of this. The Tesla rebate. We spoke about that last year.
Over and over again.
It was taxpayer money going to wealthy Tesla owners. He had an opportunity. He had political gold right there sitting in front of him, and he took the actual gold. He could have gone, yes, I claimed the rebate. I'm morally opposed to it. I'm taking that money and I'm donating it to rural mental health, which is understaffed by the Labour government. I'm a millionaire. I shouldn't be able to get it, that sort of thing. But he didn't. He took it, and then he's actually, it's my wife's car. Actually, it's well within the rules. This, that, and the other thing.
Hang on, you've missed it. It's the I'm entitled to it. We don't even leave him move away from that. I'm entitled to it.
Absolutely.
And with the Tesla, as me and Chewie were saying all the way through, you are actually, we're actually okay with you taking that. It's okay. What's not okay is you saying other people shouldn't be, or what's not okay is you saying we're going to change this group of people's entitlements whilst you're taking an entitlement. That's what's not okay about it.
Yeah. Really good point. I'm entitled to it. It's within the rules. Then we've got this electorate office, which is a very clear rort. It's a fantastic personal decision for his portfolio. Absolutely fantastic. Makes absolutely no sense if you look at it literally any other direction. I saw your tweet and I jumped straight on Google and I was like, oh shit, yeah. Like, just take an old shop. It's an electorate office. What more do you need? You don't need a 3-bedroom house with a garage. So there's another case. Same thing. Within the rules. I'll take it. I'm not going to look at any other consideration, whether it looks good, whether it's going to damage me politically, whether it's going to show me in a poor light from a leadership point of view, or from a moral point of view. We've got the criticism of public servants getting pay or bonuses to study te reo.
Yep.
He's doing it. The public's paying for that for him. Now, I have, to be very clear, have no problem with the man learning te reo. It's important for a leader of this country to
taking money from the public coffers to do it. We don't have a problem with that either.
No,
but again,
not. What I have a problem with is the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And when he speaks about it, he says, well, actually, no, it comes out of my discretionary fund. And I want to shake him like the baby he looks like and go, and where does that discretionary fund come from? Taxpayer money, you idiot. And then you have this on Friday where he is getting the public to pay for an apartment he fucking owns freehold.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to go to Premier House. He's got a free house. He doesn't want it.
Let's do this. Let's go to this. This is from the stand-up. I was actually going to play last night's article as well, but I think we're at a good point to play the stand-up from today, because Jenna Lynch, we've given Jenna Lynch some criticism where Jenna Lynch has deserved criticism, but she made some pretty good points in the stand-up at the moment. Let's have a listen to what she said to him, a little bit about the moral side of things as well. Have a listen.
What does it say about your character that while you're looking at cutting back food in schools for hungry kids, you were comfortable clipping the ticket for your own accommodation.
Look, I disagree. I disagree. I said, that's...
It's funny how he disagrees with her asking him about his moral standing. I disagree. What, you disagree with I'm being asked about my moral standing?
I disagree that I have morals.
I've explained the situation about Premier House. I want to go live in Premier House. That's where I've wanted to go since I became Prime Minister. The reality is I received a report from Chris Hipkins, which he had received, that said there's a lot of investment needed in there because there's a lot of repairs and long-term repairs and maintenance issues, right? And so I'm trying to find a way to fix those up. In the intervening period, all I've said is, look, I'll stay on in my flat. There are, within the rules, all MPs and ministers get an allowance, and all I've said is...
Claimed it.
Sorry?
No one has claimed it for 30 years.
Sorry, what do you mean?
No,
all MPs and ministers have an allowance?
Okay, this is the bit that's not true. This is actually not true, and I'm going to play... The lovely Karen Plunkett's going to help us 2 times tonight, Chewie. The first time is when his guest today, who was a List MP, explains how it works, the actual accommodation supplement works, and not everyone gets what Mr. Luxon gets. He gets $1,000 flat fee because he's the Prime Minister. Not everybody gets this. So we've got to be clear. What he says there is either because he doesn't understand, which is always possible with him, or he's just choosing to lie.
Within the rules, all MPs and ministers get an allowance, and all I've said is...
Claimed it.
Sorry?
No one has claimed it for 30 years.
Sorry, what do you mean?
No
all MPs and ministers have an allowance? All I'm saying
no Prime Minister
because Premier House has been available for them to go live in. And so if you live outside of the Greater Wellington...
Now think about that. Premier House is available for them to live in. It doesn't cost them anything. I'm sitting in my freehold apartment, which doesn't cost me anything, so I'm going to take it. We'll just get to the end of this.
area, that's where that allowance kicks in. But what I'm just saying to you is, look, my well-being within the rules, I'm saying it's a distraction, not happening.
In that house, but it's not good enough for you to live in.
Again, a lot's happened since that former Prime Minister was actually in that house, and as you know, there's a new report that came out.
Lots happened to that house since 14 months ago. All those Wellington earthquakes and stuff, all those, it's fallen down. She was only in a tent by the end of it.
From an independent group that's not political, that actually is designed so that actually these issues are apolitical, and to make sure that actually it can be invested in. We're working our way through that report. We'll see what we can do to try and make sure that we can maintain Premier House so that it actually is there for future Prime Ministers as well, which I would love it to be there. I would love it to be more available to the community to be used as well. In an intervening period, as I said to you, not taking the allowance, we'll repay it. Don't want to be a distraction.
Okay, so give me a couple of secs here, guys, to put out what we're going to put out, and then you can jump in. So the first thing is, he didn't say I was wrong, right? So he didn't say, yeah, I made a mistake. I didn't quite, like my staff just ticked all the boxes. It was a mistake I shouldn't have. What he said is, it's a distraction. So what he said was, he didn't go, yeah, that was a mistake I shouldn't have. He went, oh, this is a distraction. Now, that I think is quite telling, that he still will not actually admit to any wrongdoing. Now, we know within the rules he didn't do anything wrong, but the question there from Jenna about school lunches was fucking brilliant. And later on in this hour, when we talk about David Seymour saying we can't afford school lunches, the thing is, we can afford school lunches. It just depends what you prioritise. And at the moment, big tobacco, big petroleum, landlords are prioritised higher than school kids getting lunches. So we're not going to buy this. Before you jump in, I know I'm ranting now. I want to play you one thing, because remember what he said, everyone's entitled to this, and that's horseshit. This is the List MP from Tauranga, and his surname, ironically, is Luxton, Luxton. I didn't even know. This is him explaining how the system works for getting your accommodation supplement. Have a listen. And if you miss it, I'll explain it at the end. Have a listen.
Parliamentary services, this is all new to me as a new MP, parliamentary services pay a accommodation supplement, some kind of allowance you send in your tenancy agreement and you still pay it out of your account, but that comes in with your pay.
So what MPs do is they provide evidence for how much their mortgage or their rent is, and they get reimbursed. He has no mortgage and he has no rent. It's a freehold property. So when he says everyone's entitled to this, it's not the case. The Prime Minister is entitled to a flat $1,000 a week fee. So please don't listen to him when he says, yes, it's in the rules, but this is not like everybody else. This is a special entitlement that the Prime Minister gets, that the previous 30 years, not one single Prime Minister has taken. Now, I'm finished my rant, but it just occurs to me, Clint, that you've probably spent some time in that house when you were working with and for Jacinda Ardern. Is it a hovel that's falling down?
Well, we went there. We had a Christmas party the first year after Labour was elected, and that was the time I was allowed to go there. No, it's really fancy. I mean, it's a mansion for a prime minister. It's dated, so you go inside, and it kind of looks like your grandma's house might look like, or even like your grandma if you grew up in the 80s. So, you know, it looks a bit old fashioned, but it's all fancy as hell. Like, you know, it's all nice. It's just dated. So now I've heard that upstairs in the Prime Minister's apartment, it does need some refreshing, and maybe they'd knock some walls out and stuff. You know, it was built in a different time. But you're not... Hipkins, you know, said, look, it's habitable. It's not a matter that you can't live in there. Absolutely. Just on as Chewie said, you know, there's the politics of this, right? So, like, why didn't he say, I'm asking Kiwis to cut back? In fact, I'm forcing them to cut back. I'm cutting their jobs. I'm cutting their benefits. I'm cutting left, right, and centre, and say, look, it's tough times. I'm part of it too. I'm cutting back. I'm not taking this allowance that I could. Why didn't he have the sort of sense to do that? But there's what you call the front page test, right? I've sat down, you know, I've been with leaders of parties in these situations where, not obviously this situation, but things that's like, some bad news is going to come out. What do we do? How did he go? Mark Delder must have called up his office on Thursday to get the information that he was taking the allowance. Mm-hmm. His advisors and senior ministers would have said to him, this is indefensible. And he must have said, no, I think it's fine. And he went all the way through until Friday afternoon, did a stand-up where he said, I'm entitled, it's my entitlement, I'm entitled. And only after that did he finally realize that it wasn't politically sustainable, because his political opponents, every time he went to cut something, when, you know, at the budget, when he's going to cut free prescriptions for cancer patients and the disabled, would turn around and say, wait a minute, you're taking $52,000 a year, aren't you? Why are the cancer patients having to pay for their prescriptions while you're taking $52,000 a year? Finally, he realized after, you know, he must have had his advisors in his ear saying this is impossible for more than 24 hours before he cottoned on to it. But that front page test is sort of a backup for when your own internal morals fail. Like, the first step should be, no, I can't do this. I can't take every bit of money from the taxpayer that's available to me when I'm worth $30-40 million at the same time as making the poorest Kiwis poorer. Where was the morality that stopped him doing it before you get to the stupid politics of it? Why didn't his internal morality stop him? It's so little money for him as well.
Yeah.
You know, this is nothing to a guy with $40 million.
But he's entitled to it.
He's
you
entitled.
know, why is everybody angry? I'm entitled to it. It's like every time I came at this on Friday, and I just like, either his advisors are completely dropping the ball, or he's ignoring them. And when I saw
professional advisor would give him
interviews, when I saw him do those interviews, 1, 2, 3, and then late afternoon, I'm paying it back because it's a distraction. And I just wanted to go, mate, I would love a $52,000 distraction. Far out. You're talking like a full-time minimum wage earner makes $47,000 a year.
Yeah.
Before tax.
And yeah, but it's before tax, Chewie. So that means they get about maybe 40 or 38 in their hand. This is tax-free, this $52,000. And the other thing that's going to irk all of us is, remember this little piece of audio?
We want a government that cares about how every single dollar is spent, because every single dollar the government spends is ultimately a dollar from your pocket.
So what we do here, Clint, quite often is we're actually quite generous, I think. We will hold this government at least to the account they held the last government to, or to the standards they set for themselves. And they are just coming short so much. Here's also a Twitter from the same kind of era. Oh, sheesh, I just put myself there. I didn't mean to do that. It's revolting. Oh, I didn't mean to do that either. Holy crap, what's going on? There. Sorry about that. We're back. Here's a tweet that he put up around the same sort of time. The days of taxpayers being treated like a bottomless ATM are over. You know, I'm also wondering, I put out some tweets in the weekend. One of them said something like, I wonder if he got a $1,000 a week from the ATM, or maybe Chewie, at what point was he going to come out and say, oh, well, you know, my wife books my accommodation, and we don't discuss her finances.
Department.
It's my wife's apartment. I'm renting it off her. We don't discuss her finances. That's off limits, Chewie.
Now, I would have loved to have been in the room of the Labour Party social media team fucking fighting over each other to drop in exactly what you put up.
Right.
And then going next minute, boom, easy. Social media win. That went round New Zealand in record time. You could hear the fucking sonic boom on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a complete, like, it's the hypocrisy, it's the complete failure of any political thought process at all. Of like, this is going to look bad by anyone that looks at it. I'm a millionaire. I don't need it.
You know, fundamentally, it's a class thing.
Yeah,
there's a class thing here, right? Because he was telling the poorest New Zealanders, you are using taxpayers as an ATM. How dare you? He was accusing the poorest New Zealanders of being bludgers and ripping people off, and yet here's this guy taking every cent he can get a hold of. And it's the same with the landlord tax cuts, right? We have the government saying we want to ensure we're getting value for money out of feeding poor kids lunch, but are we checking if we're getting value for money from giving mega landlords $1 million a year in tax cuts?
Yeah.
No, because he's a landlord. They're part of his class, and it just doesn't apply.
I have just remembered another one we can chuck in. Remember how much criticism the government got over flying in Air Force planes? Expensive, untenable. We're going to fly commercial. That's certainly not what's happening now. He wants to fly in our Air Force One. And it's another example of just hypocrisy and the baubles of office.
It's also this idea that it's not just money. I mean, remember what they said they were going to do with they're talking constantly about Labour's, too much bureaucracy, Labour, too much bureaucracy. We're going to put a whole new layer of bureaucracy into WINS and get those young people looked after. So their bureaucracy is okay, but Labour's bureaucracy, too much bureaucracy. So let's not get also kind of taken away with thinking this is just about Luxon and money. This is about national and policy as well. Those guys have got too much of X, Y, Z. Oh, when we do X, Y, Z, no, that's just good policy. But those guys doing the same sort of thing, too much, too bad. How do you handle that in the Prime Minister's office, Clint? Like when you get accused of hypocrisy, whether it's there or not, what goes on? What are the conversations?
Well, I'm struggling to recall one that was about hypocrisy directly, but there are circumstances that always come up for a leader. Maybe one of your caucuses misbehaved or something, or one of these things. And the first thing you do is always get the information out as quickly as you can that you have. You don't muck around. But the other thing is, if what's happened is indefensible, you don't try and defend it. You own it, and you say, so some of the times leaders look the best is when they are able to say, that thing that I did or that my minister did was not on, and it's changing. People like that because that's what they expect from a leader. What they don't want from leaders is this evasive stuff, and it does set in governments. But we've seen it right at the start from Luxon that it's always excuses. Like you say, he said, the reason I'm doing this is I'm not taking the money as it's a distraction. He didn't own it and say,
No.
He could have said, look, I was taking it as opposition leader, didn't really think about it, but I am asking Kiwis to tighten their belts. It's tough at times. It's only right I do it too. He could have still salvaged the position and come out with that line, but he refused to. And I guarantee, because Chris Bishop and Nicola Willis, I went to uni with Bishop, I know them well, they are smart operators, and they would have been say that stuff to him, but he doesn't. He's not listening.
So here's a question, Clint, and this is something Chewie says all the time, right over there. This to me comes off then as a CEO who's like, why are you questioning me, rather than a politician? Mm-hmm. And Chewie's point often, Chewie, do you want to say it? You can say it. I won't say it for you.
He is not very good at this. He's
the
not
world of politics.
Yeah, that's true. But what I say to my friends who are still in Parliament and still with Labour or the Greens is, yeah, but the left lost to him.
Yeah.
So, I do think. I mean, look, the public think he's not very good at politics. He's rating 25% as preferred prime minister. That's lower than Hipkins. It's lower than when Bill English took over. They both lost elections within a year. He's not going to face that test that early, but his popularity will not increase. It will be in the toilet after this. And so, if the left can mount a decent campaign in 26, they're in with a chance.
Yeah, I mean, that's a test for me. Is my mother, who does not care for politics, sent me a text message on Friday going, "Have you fucking seen this?"
Yeah. Same with my wife. She's not into politics, but she saw that and she was like, "What is this? How can he be cutting the school lunches and taking this money?"
And then we had backup arrived for him later that day on Friday. The crusader for taxpayer value for money, David Seymour, sees absolutely no problem with it, and basically implied that anybody doing a job shouldn't be out of pocket for doing that job. That's some great news that the government is now happy to pay my bus fare. And I assume I get 3 meals out of it. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to the unveiling of this new policy for workers.
I think that reflects that David's never had a real job.
So Clint, you've been an advisor in those positions, probably I guess still are in your consultancy work. You're today sitting now in the office of Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, and he says to you, what do we do from here? What do you say to him?
I think right now he's dug himself in too deep into it's a distraction line, so he has to sort of hope it moves on. And the issue is now he's really associated what's happening at Premier House with him, and so when a decision is made about renovating Premier House, it's going to be Luxon wants 10 mil dropped on blinging out his mansion. Yeah. So that would be my concern as an advisor, is looking forward. As an advisor, you've always got to be looking at what's going to happen downstream of this,
and then what?
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy as the leader to get caught up in the moment, but it's the downstream that'll matter. And yeah, even though he stopped taking the money now, is still emblematic. It's still going to be, when they cut through prescriptions, it's still going to be, yeah, but you're the guy who took the Tesla money, you're the guy who got the taxpayer to pay for your Toyota, you're the guy who is pocketing money from the electorate office, and you were taking all that money for your apartment in Wellington, but you're saying that cancer patients have to pay for their prescriptions now. It undermines the morality of what they're doing even more than the landlord tax cuts.
Yep.
So it's a problem. I don't envy his advisors.
Yeah, no, I the thing that resonates with me about what you've just said is he can't really turn his back on what he's done now because he is dug into deep. If he kind of comes out now and says it was all a mistake, it'll be like, yeah, okay, hi PR team on the 9th floor. That sounds pretty obvious. You're losing, so you're explaining it in a different way. So I feel the same. I feel like he's really got to just write it out. Maybe they'll make some amazingly horrific, terrible. Maybe they'll just say all school lunches are gone tomorrow, and then all of a sudden the whole focus will go elsewhere. Maybe that's their plan, Chewie.
Is it unfair of me to say that?
No, whatever you're going to say, it's not. Whatever you're going to say, Chewie, it's not unfair. Sorry, what are you going to say?
He says he wants to live in Premier House, but maybe he just has an aversion for staying in New Zealand's most fancy state house.
There is, I wonder if, not about what he's done or what he's not done, but there's probably a conversation here about this sort of thing as to when you upgrade it. I know when the president of the United States moves out of the White House, they have like a week and they completely redo it to how the new president wants it. I mean, maybe the thing from here on in is, election time, you renovate, you touch up, you redress, whatever, and you've got a couple of months through that summer to get the thing tidied up. I'm not trying to give him an out saying it's not good enough, but maybe there's actually some logistical help that could come from this, so this is never a conversation again. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, if it, like a lot of houses, you should do some maintenance and some renovations every now and then. And maybe it hasn't been done because it was politically unpalatable, and it's just got to this absolute shit show now that they've let it go for so long. But I mean, a lot of the beneficiaries that Luxon has been bashing, saying that they're leeches and they're going to be sanctioned and they're bottom feeders and that sort of thing, some of them live on state houses that desperately need maintenance as well.
Yeah.
In a way, we were talking about class, but in a way, it's kind of nice that that's something that's shared between all state houses at that age.
But let's not forget, that it's not as if it's falling down Premier House. I mean, Peters was living in it from 2017 to 2020. It's it's a livable house, but if he lived in it, he wouldn't have been able to get the money. And I think that goes back to it. He's sought every way he can to maximize the amount of money he's getting off the taxpayer.
That's actually a really interesting point, Clint. That's a really interesting and really subversive point if that's the way he's thought. If he's gone, I can live in my grandmother's house, sure, but if I live in this one, I get an extra 50 grand a year for ivory back scratches. That is a really pessimistic way to look at it. And if that's right, it's pretty revolting, to be honest.
I think the chain of behavior points a big fucking arrow at that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it's happened too many times for it to be a momentary lapse of judgment. It's a consistent pattern of behavior at this point.
There are a few chats there, Clint, that want to say g'day and thanks. I think I saw Spiders in there. There you go. Spider Hoof came up board with a super chat. Thanks for the $5 saying, hi, Clint. Love your work. And Peters also jumped in saying, Luxon offends New Zealanders' egalitarian sensibilities. Even John Key tried to make a show of reaching out. Luxon is just out of touch. Yeah, as soon as you say not a single prime minister in 30 years has taken this, then he's too late to do this, but you have to say it was a mistake. That's the only way around this. My staff filled out the paperwork. It was a mistake. We've stopped it, and I'm going to pay the rest back. But just like, I'm entitled. Yeah, whilst you're cancelling entitlements for other people because of austerity. So anyway, hey, Clint, it's been an absolute joy speaking to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us today. You're always welcome. And we can call you a friend of the show now. You only have to come on once and then we can claim friend of a show. He's former senior policy communications strategist for Jacinda Ardern and the director of Victor Consulting. That is Clint Smith. Clint, thanks so much for joining us. It was a blast, man.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.